Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel. Um, let's maybe give everybody a minute to get seated. How's everyone feeling today? Enjoying yourselves? So this is a Women of the Future panel. Yes, exactly. And we have three of the Women of the Future, the top 100 women in emerging technologies, Web3. They are all here to my left. So Radhika Iyengar, who's my colleague at StarChain Ventures. My name is Jorden Woods. I'm also at StarChain Ventures. We're out of Silicon Valley. There's Shenna Fortner. She's with the Carbon Capital Markets.
Carbon Market Exchange.
Carbon Market Exchange, thank you. And then Ada Jonuse, and she's with the Blockchain Center. So we have an exciting discussion today. We're going to be discussing social impact, Web3, and Metaverse. So if you are interested in social impact, the idea here with this panel is that Web3 is the way to go. So that's the first question. First question, and I'll ask Radhika here. So why Web3? If you are building social impact projects, why is Web3 the platform to start with?
Great question, actually. Well, if you look at Web3 and the foundation that it provides, apart from decentralization and peer-to-peer transactions and sharing data and so on, a lot of the spirit and the ethos comes from community. Community is such a central role that Web3 has, and so if you look at what social impact is all about, it's about community. It's not about social impact for one, it's social impact for a community. So I think that even from a foundational perspective, I think Web3 is highly suited in terms of being this decentralized and community-driven type of technology. And I think that really speaks to the purpose of social impact. It's a great fit.
Yes, so community is key. Community is the starting point. And so Sheena, can you give us some thoughts? You're very much focused on carbon markets, climate change mitigation. Why Web3?
Exactly for that reason. So community is so essential and crucial, especially when we're dealing with global issues. Metaverse has the opportunity to actually provide a forum of co-collaboration. Our governments, I was just at COP27 in Egypt, unfortunately they don't have an answer. So providing a forum where we can collaborate in a creative aspect is essential, I think, for addressing global issues as well.
Wonderful. And Ada, you're with Blockchain Center, obviously, blockchains, decentralized technologies.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So at Blockchain Center, we help companies to enter Web3 through releasing their own token and NFTs. And what is common amongst the clients we're working with is that they want real empowerment for the people who are part of their project. And I talk about empowerment in terms of economical empowerment. So we have Learning Metaverse project that actually wants to make sure that those who are creating content, any kind of learning content, are actually rewarded for their efforts and can live off that. We have a lot of gaming projects, and they want to make sure that the gamers, the players, those who actually contribute to the growth of the project, that they get a fair share of what they're doing. So I think the problem with the system that we have right now is that it's broken in terms of that there are a few oligopolies that can control the whole market and profit from that, and all others who actually contribute to the growth of social media, who create content, who write beautiful posts, pictures, videos, they barely get anything, right? And we need to change that system to make sure that those who are actually contributing to the growth of the value are rewarded for that. So that's, for me, that's why Web3.
Most definitely. So if we look out in the world today, centralized structures, they create inequality, right, at a fundamental level. And when you have inequality at a fundamental level, it usually leads to some kind of exploitative and extractive practices, which we see at the core of Web 2. So starting from an exploitative core, being able to create something that's socially impactful is quite challenging. But if you have a system which is really based on fairness and everyone having equal voice and equal access to information, that's probably a better starting point. Now, what I'd like to do, so Ada, you were talking a little bit about your projects. What I'd like each of the ladies here to talk about, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and also the projects that you're working on in a little bit more detail and how you're using Web3 and Metaverse, that would be great.
Yeah, so I've done quite a few things. I joined Web3 in 2017, and since then I founded a startup, I exited a startup, and we worked with health data, making sure that people who contribute this very important data to whoever wants to use that are getting rewarded for that. With my first startup, Limpo, we have pivoted to a GameFi company, working with NFTs and creating opportunities for the owners of those NFTs to use them in other environments, working with athletes, making sure that they're rewarded for their IP rights. And right now I co-founded Blockchain Center, and we're a Web3 advisory consultancy, helping companies who want to discover what they can do with Web3 for their business. And part of my activities is also empowering women and empowering entrepreneurs, because I believe that this is the path to freedom. Yeah.
Most definitely. And so that's going to be a recurring theme here, especially with Women of the Future, empowering women. And so thank you, Ada, for your work. Sheena, it'd be great to learn more about you.
So my background, I've spent 20 years in conservation efforts as an activist as well. I'm an environmental lawyer. And so what we've been able to do with carbon market exchange is we've been to create a marriage between the financial and the conservation entities around the world. We've currently preserved over 100 million acres globally. We have projects in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. So how we've incorporated in the blockchain space is we've actually tokenized carbon offsets. According to Forbes, last year, carbon offsets increased in price by 300%. I believe Forbes is projecting carbon offsets to increase by 3,000% by 2030. We're taking a global issue such as climate change and taking it from a centralized mechanism to a decentralized mechanism. We involve communities at all levels. Shareholders are involved, government officials, the United Nations as well, to bring decentralized activities that actually affect local communities. Our projects are currently nature-backed offsets, and we're moving into renewable energy. So 15% of all of our projects actually create renewables, green energy, solar initiatives, wind, tidal. So our incorporation into blockchain technology is we have an NFT, it's called XCO2. We're launching in Q1. We currently have a coin, XCO2 as well. We have applied for Reg A. So we're creating a utility token and a security token.
Wonderful. And dealing with such a large global issue with Web3 is quite powerful. So thanks for doing this, Sheena. And Radhika.
Thanks. So I'm a founding partner at StarChain Ventures, and I've been in technology most of my life. I think for me, technology and emerging technologies has always been sort of that defining path. Serial entrepreneur by background, and have been in Silicon Valley for over 2.5 decades. Certainly seen enough of the rise and fall of technology cycles through my time there. For me, my entry into Web3 was around 2017, and Jorden, we've been partnered for nearly a decade, and we co-authored our book in 2019. We're probably one of the first people to call out the rise of Web3 from a business opportunity perspective. So it's always been about looking at next-gen technologies like Web3 in combination with AI, ML, or IoT, or other advanced technologies to create impactful solutions. It's all about the responsible use of technology. We have a project called the AstroSapiens project, which is also featured in the book, Women of the Future. And this project has kind of a four-parter to it. There is a commercial side to it, which is the NFT collection. Our first series was launched this past August, and it's the Futurist series. And purchasers of the NFTs in that collection also then become members of the DAO, as well as other perks that are associated with that. We also have a community that is open to all, and Jorden, you and I have been building that community very proactively to build a community of doers and a network of networks, so to speak, to connect communities across the globe, all doing important, socially impactful activities. The whole purpose of this is to then fund the foundation, which awards grants to various projects. We're proud to have backed Women of the Future as a project. We're proud to have backed Mission Impact, which is so central to our thesis that diversity, equity, and inclusion in STEAM is absolutely the wave of the future. It's the present and the future, and we absolutely need it to be as diverse and inclusive as possible. So for us, empowering women, empowering diverse founders globally to create projects using Web3 and advanced technologies to create impactful futures is really what our ethos is all about. So been an incredible ride already, and we look forward to partnering with many, many of you to create even larger impact.
Well, great. Thank you for that, Radhika. Obviously, I'm very involved with it as well, so quite familiar. But as Radhika mentioned, we see that diversity, equity, and inclusion, and increasing that and having a more balanced world is at the root of many of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So if you have inequity and inequality as a starting point, you're going to have unequal wealth distribution. You're going to have problems as a result with those who have and those who have not. And so if you look at the 17 UN SDGs, if you can have a balanced playing field to start, we believe that that will lead to a much more balanced world, and many of these issues will actually be solved. So with that, we've talked quite a bit about our different projects, about why Web3. We then need to look at, is this just something that we're doing and no one really else cares about? Because it's important that this actually go global. Sheena obviously has talked about some of her projects, and Ada. We have a venture fund and we invest in our own, but maybe I'll just start there with Radhika and say, who's investing in these types of projects?
Well, I'd love to say women, but it's not the case. I think women are still very much the minority in the crypto space in general. And this is kind of one of those problems that Jorden and I look at each other and say, well, I certainly don't want to wake up tomorrow and say, gosh, we're here again, where women are behind the curve, that we need to have more women involved. We need to have more diverse people involved. And I think that's not the case. And so this intentionality of wanting to make a better world, a more equitable world, a fairer access to opportunities, to be active participants in creating a future that we can all be a part of, I think that's an intentional thing. But as we know, this is kind of a multi-sided sort of equation. So it's not just who's going to buy these NFTs or who's going to participate in crypto or who's going to be part of Web3 technologies in general. It's about who's creating things as well and who's investing in these projects. So we on the venture side are very much focused on leveling that playing field of opportunities, because as I know personally from having been a serial entrepreneur, when you go to get your project funded, who you're meeting at the end of the other side of the table is very often a white male who may or may not identify with your perspective as a woman. And so it is really about leveling the playing field, creating these accesses of opportunities across the board. And so for that, we're focused a lot on the investment side of the equation, leveling that playing field so that the next generation of women and diverse founders know that they can encounter somebody on that side of the table that looks a little bit more like them.
Thanks, Radhika. Sheena, you talked about your Reg A and the NFT collection and the token. Who's buying? Who's supporting?
So with Carbon Market Exchange, we've been able to create somewhat of a cross-section. Most people have heard of carbon credits, carbon offsets, that now the SEC in the United States is saying that companies have to disclose their climate risk. So we're at a cross-section of the regulatory processes who are really assisting in making expedite this as well. We're also seeing the European Union, anything that's currently traded in the EU starting in 2023 needs to have carbon offsets. So it's a great time for the carbon market. We work with Fortune 500 companies. We're in discussion right now, even Bitcoin 2023 to offset their ticket sales. I think a lot of companies are realizing that younger generations, millennials especially, will go the extra mile or pay the extra dollar for a product that is actually going to make a difference. So by working also in the crypto sphere through NFTs, and then even working with the regulatory bodies such as the SEC, we have created this divergent or this emergent point between the regulatory and then Web3 and crypto as well.
Wonderful. Sounds like 2023 is going to be a big year. Ada, how about for you?
Yeah, so I saw a lot of progress in this space over the last few years, and obviously, right at the beginning, people who were already in finance and in tech got into crypto, right? Because it's a natural fit. But now, what I think for me, a big difference, or like the moment where I understood that it's here to stay was last year, about a year and a half ago, where I learned that so many people I know are leaving their jobs because they're joining Web3. So it's not only about creating wealth, and we know that there are a lot of things that went wrong in the space. But as this talent, massive amount of talent joined it, this is where I believe that really there's going to be a lasting impact there. And among these people also are a lot of women, and I got contacted by a lot of women lately, even now, trying to find out, okay, how do I invest? What is the space about? And obviously, I cannot give any investment advice because I'm not investment professional, but at least we can talk a little bit about how these things look like. And there is a lot of willingness on the side of women to join the space, to co-create wealth and to co-create impactful projects.
Well, that's very good news, because that's why we're here, and that's what we're all trying to create in the world ahead. One thing, Ada, and this kind of crosses over into the metaverse and maybe has more to do with your prior company. Can you tell us a little bit about your prior company and Animoca Brands and some of the things that you're seeing with the metaverse?
Yes, so my company Limpo was bought by Animoca Brands, and Animoca Brands is one of the blockchain unicorns based out of Hong Kong and London. I think their valuation is about $5 billion right now, and they're going all into metaverse. And even in these very hard times for crypto and overall in the times of recession, I think they're raising now $1 billion fund for metaverse, only because they say, okay, in these times where everything gets stormy, the established players get support because they're already there, and there's more focused financing on that. And I think when we talk about metaverse, I think One important thing for me when it comes to an open metaverse, the version of the metaverse that Web3 community is trying to create, is that what makes it immersive is not necessarily hardware only. You can have VR glasses and play an amazing game, and it's beautiful and it's fun, but that's it. Is it a metaverse? No, I think it's a kind of entertainment that you actually experience. You had this beautiful game, and that's it. You go on with your life. However, if you have the same thing where you can impact that world, you can create something for that world, you can participate in the economy of that world, you can have legacy, you can have history, and that is possible with the immutability of the blockchain, one of the main principles that the blockchain is built on. This is when it becomes a metaverse for you. You know, this is when this is an alternative world in which you can meaningfully participate. And this is when you kind of say, okay, I have this, but I also have that world, and maybe I am on some social media on Metaverse where everything that I created, I can take with me to another platform. I can monetize it if that's what I'm doing, or I can just have fun. So this is where I see this perfect marriage between Metaverse and Web3, because only that will make this alternative world meaningful to us.
Yeah, that's a very important point. I mean, we're here at an Immerse Metaverse conference, so obviously many people are interested in the Metaverse. You know, a Web 2 model, like we were talking about, which is centralized, and it has kind of it's closed, and when it's closed, it means it's kind of like a walled garden, right? You can be in there. If you might have heard of Hotel California, you can go to the hotel, but you can't leave. And that's really the type of metaverse that you might have if it's created and built by the Web 2 companies that are around today. If you think about social media, it's similar. But if you're going to create a more inclusive type of metaverse where we can create new societies, it really needs to be built more on a Web 3 open, more equal access foundation. And you can then also build it with impact in mind. And to that, I would like to turn it over to Sheena to speak a little bit more about your vision for how the metaverse can be used.
Yes, metaverse, individuals in metaverse and within Web3 and crypto space, we're innovative, we're creative. And what if the individuals within the sphere actually had a larger voice to deal with global issues, whether it be banking, water, climate change, and bringing everyone together within this metaverse sphere allows for that discussion. Communities within Tanzania will have different needs than our projects in Indonesia or in Latin America. So allowing this collective voice to be heard. And in the interim, we're also creating augmented reality. A lot of people may not have the opportunity to experience a safari in Tanzania, or maybe go diving with the Dali corals in Indonesia. And so we're actually providing a user interface to experience the cultures, the people, the biodiversity, and really having an impact on ground that is quite substantial. Carbon Market Exchange supports the 30 by 30 initiative, 30% of the planet to be preserved by 2030. Collectively, we can obtain this goal. If we sit back and wait for our governments to find a solution, we're still waiting. And I keep seeing this clock ticking. And I think in the US, government intervention within the environmental sector has been for over 100 years. And look where it's gotten us.
Yes, most definitely. So private action and building communities that are focused on global challenges is very important. As we've seen, we're at COP27, and so 27 years and very little to show for it. So to that, Radhika, if you can speak about how the projects that we're working on are going to be incorporating Metaverse, that would be great.
Yeah, so first of all, our NFTs are 3D avatars. They are Metaverse ready. And we approach this with a real intentionality. Whether it was a good decision or a bad decision, time will tell. But we intentionally did not put a white male 3D model. We have 4 3D models. We have 2 people of color, 1 man and 1 woman, along traditional gender lines. And then we've got, a Caucasian woman. We've also got an Asian man. So we've got base models that we feel it's important to see to believe. And so when in this Web3 world and the crypto world, what we're really seeing more of, once again, has been white males. And so for us, it was an intentional decision to create a collection that, at least in this particular collection, we could only do 4 base models. We will be expanding that across a big spectrum of diversity, because that's really, really important. But this intentionality of seeing is believing, and really being diverse and united in the cosmos, as we say, has to come with that intentionality. And then the way we're creating the DAO as well, which is in truly decentralized fashion, what we see is going to drive the next wave of leadership, global leadership. It has to be decentralized. It has to be a flat structure where each person is given an equal voice. And we're also intentionally building our community within this metaverse as well in the future, where we're creating environments that I think have a diverse perspective right from the get-go. I can't emphasize enough that if we have the same people developing the next metaverses out there, it will become an extension of the same failings we have in real life today. So it has to be another intentional movement in terms of creating these spaces that are intentionally diverse and united right from the get-go. It's baked in into the foundation, so that anybody who is coming into these spaces will feel that their perspective is something that has been taken into account. And typically, when you have diverse and inclusive people developing these metaverse experiences, you will find that their perspective is very much taking into account that diversity or inclusion as a base case. So this is kind of the way we're intentionally moving into the metaverse with the collection, and really putting that front and center with every step of the way.
Yeah, it would be great to speak a little bit more about the future and how, in the case of the AstroSapiens collection, which is ours, if you can comment, Radhika, about how we see building this inclusive metaverse, and what are going to be the rules in this new inclusive metaverse?
I think we spent a whole conference talking about that, actually. It's, again, that intentionality is something that we're starting with. And so the way we develop the collection, the way we're looking at how this collection will allow people to enter with their 3D avatars into the metaverse, to create these unique, diverse, and inclusive experiences within the metaverse for really a global population is really our goal and our mission. And we're trying to do this not in isolation, because again, the ethos of Web3 is community. And so we're aligning ourselves with many other partners who have similar goals, who want to build this better, more equitable future for all, and linking arms with these communities to do that. At the AstroSapiens project, we're not just backing projects that have diversity and inclusion at their core in Web3 and the metaverse. We're also looking at other frontier tech, for example. So another one of these projects that we backed through the foundation at launch was with the Space Foundation, which is one of the oldest space advocacy groups in the United States. Space Foundation has a project called Moon Colony Kit, inspired by the Artemis mission, which we know has a really wonderful objective of putting the first woman and person of color on the moon and building the first lunar colony. And so this particular project, the Moon Colony Project, was developed in collaboration with NASA and the White House National Space Council to create more diverse and equitable opportunities for children from grades 4 through 8 across the United States. And this particular project, in its first cohort, is 20,000 children, 70% of whom are from Title I schools in the United States, which are from the lowest socioeconomic strata. And so it was super impactful to see these children's eyes light up and say, wow, I can be an astronaut, I can be a doctor in space, I can be an engineer, I can be X, Y, or Z. So if we're really looking at, by 2030, living and working on the moon, we're going to have a pretty incredible opportunity to build a community up on the moon, which is going to be representative of the Earth. We don't want, white males building a lunar colony. We want white males, but not exclusively. So again, building that intentionality and taking this into Metaverse, taking this into these opportunities to expand that footprint for diversity and inclusion is very much an intentional mission.
Yeah, so with children and then looking forward to frontier technologies, and then Metaverse can help all of the people from spacefaring and non-spacefaring nations to, experience what it's like to be on the moon. You can't take everybody from the Earth and put them on the moon. There's not enough space. But there is space for all. And so there's the asteroid belt, there's the outer planets, which we'll eventually go to. So with that, Sheena, what's next?
That's a great question, and as well, it's all through cross-linking and collaboration. It's essential. So right now, we are teaming up with a brand called ECTA, and they have a game called MetaTrees. So the reward from MetaTrees will actually be carbon offsets that can be traded. And we're also addressing the issue of plastic. Plastic is a problem around the globe. So particularly in Southeast Asia, we're actually paying people to pick up plastic, and they come and return it for an NFT. The NFT can then be cashed in for food, which is usually pounds of rice. So it's a very simple system, yet this cross interconnected between the reality and the virtual world to address global issues. Marvelous.
And that's what we need, kind of, the virtual and the physical, and then providing more opportunity and more impact. What I often say is changing the existing systems that exist in the world today is going to be difficult in the physical world. But, we can actually create it. And so we can set the rule set and, what we hope it to be by creating that more inclusive metaverse and virtual world. Ada, can you give us your final thoughts on this? And we can then go to questions if we have a few more minutes. And so take it away.
Yeah, just to underline this aspect of collaboration, because when you think about it, this is where the paradigm shifts. When you think about it, Web3 is actually open source. So anything can be copied by anyone, right? So instead of so right now we have with IP rights, we have the system of competition. When everything becomes open source, it's more about collaboration. It's also, changing the way we look at business, changing the way we look at building, and changing the way we relate to each other. Because we don't relate to each other through competition anymore. We relate to each other through collaboration. And these are the things that you've mentioned. So I think we're gonna see more and more of that, more and more of projects that work together. And one of the big things for me in terms of impact is actually social media. And I've been a fan of some decentralized social media for a while. And right now, I see a few very promising projects out there. One of them is Lens Protocol with, I think, about 100,000 users right now. It's in a closed beta, so it's not for everyone, but they're building this up. I think Jack Dorsey, the former CEO of Twitter, is also building something. So the technology is getting better and better. It was very difficult to build many things back in 2017, where you only had Ethereum, which is the transaction fees are high. The network might be very clogged. There is a lack of various payment methods, integrations, but the tooling just got so much better. And I think that we are very soon going to be at the point where everything is already there. The products are there. It's more of a mental shift. It's more of this critical mass coming together and actually starting using that and saying, no, we don't like the old stuff anymore. We want this. So right now we're in this cycle where it's not so much about hype, it's more about building, and I'm very excited to see what comes out of that.
Most definitely, and that's a great way to end the panel, is with building and building a better future. Looks like we have around 5 minutes left, so if there are any questions from the audience in terms of Web3 or Metaverse, it would be great. Yeah, I think there's a microphone coming to you.
Perfect, thank you, and really love the building what we want for the future. And now we have the tooling, and it's becoming easier to build that out. So I really appreciate that last point. So earlier in the call, in the discussion, there was a mention about how the government meeting in COP kind of was not as effective as we all would have hoped. So that kind of leaves us to the community point of the community can come together and make changes, but the community alone can only go so far. So what can we do from a community perspective to aid the government to make changes? Do we have to partner up with private organizations to make those changes? Do we have to just educate, and then eventually somebody with power can make it there? Very curious what your thoughts are on that.
Address that quickly. So I think it is going to be public-private partnerships, for sure. Government has its role to play. I think that, again, diversity and inclusive leadership in government is also going to be very important for the future to create that mindset that Ada and Sheena we've been talking about. But also it is going to be a public-private partnership. The other way is, I'm, for example, a member of this, a task force that is the California GovOps Blockchain Working Group advising Governor Gavin Newsom and California State Legislature. And the result of our work between 2019 and 2020 resulted in an executive order by the governor earlier this year in May. And then just a couple months ago, new law that was created, spearheaded by Senator Bob Hertzberg, who's also a member of the task force, to present Californians with the opportunity to have their vital records available on the blockchain. So the whole mission of this task force was to educate legislators to create innovation-friendly policies. That legislation side is incredibly important, but you have to have legislation that is not only focused on compliance and regulation, but also that is going to take into account innovation and not stifle the path of innovation. So to really use the best of technology to solve impactful problems we have, to make these on-ramps, it is going to be a public-private partnership. And the government of California is not going to build it in isolation. They are going to look to private enterprises to help build out the infrastructure. But the stated intent has to also come from government to recognize that there's a role that a technology can play in paving a better future for its residents, for example.
Anyone else, Sheena or Ada, did you want to comment?
Yes. I think first we have to realize that government officials are humans, right? Not superheroes, and we're dealing with very complex issues, and definitely it has to come from private and public sectors merging. And what I found also, it has to make sense, right? CENTS. And once it makes sense, it's much easier to submit a proposal. So right now we have the regulatory system which is actually supporting climate change to make some substantial efforts.
Yeah, we call that regulatory tailwind. And Ada?
Just one word, that is also so central for Web3 is decentralization. So I think we're moving from the times of the nation states to something that can be called network state maybe. And actually, of course, nation states rules our reality as it is right now, but we are also at an VRARA conference, right? We're with people who've been looking into the future the whole time, and we see that changing. And we're in Miami, and it's a great example. The mayor of Miami is more powerful than many presidents in the world, right? Everything is getting more decentralized, and there are these local actors who emerge and who can take action And this trend is really goes along with the technology, and I think there's going to be like more and more these coalitions of those who want to move forward, and this can be done beyond nation states.
Federated structures.
Yeah, definitely. Another question, please.
Hello. I feel as everything we've discussed here is 100% aligned to what future individuals are going to be creating to make possible. My question more so is, have you decided to take the leap in working with local government and getting the research to show that the technology works in local regions that are already troubled, and then that data is reflecting the argument that you're presenting in policy? And if not, what are the potential relationships that you think need to be possible to make that possible, and how much is it going to cost to ensure it?
Yeah, it looks like our time is up, but maybe Radhika, you're working with government. Did you want to just make a quick statement?
I mean, to the extent that the task force, the whole purpose of having this task force, which was also created by a bill in California, was to look at how this technology is going to positively impact the residents of California. California is the 4th largest economy in the world, and we have about 40 million residents in California. It's not a small state. And so, to embark on a project that involves Web3 and other technologies in combination to come together collaboratively with public-private partnerships to benefit 40 million residents of California, I think that's a pretty ambitious goal. Obviously, in the execution, as Sheena was pointing out, it is going to be a public-private kind of partnership. It's not going to be government that's going to be building it, but it is going to be overseen, if you will, by government. But this is about that regulatory tailwind. This is about having laws on our side. As technologists, we do want to have that innovation-friendly sandbox in which we can create positive applications and solutions. So I hope that answers some of your questions.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. We're very happy that you're excited about what we're doing.